Welcome back to How to Create Retro Elements in Adobe Illustrator. I'm Mary Winkler for Envato Tutsplus. In this lesson, we'll discuss some of the shapes and colors we'll be using throughout this short course to make our designs more retro appropriate. Let's draw some shapes and have a bit of a chat. Grab the Rectangle tool, shortcut M, from the toolbox. Hold down Shift to draw a square, and then draw a rectangle next to it. Using the Ellipse tool, shortcut L, draw a circle. Again, hold down Shift to keep it even. I'm working in Creative Cloud, so I have access to live corners. Use the Direct Selection tool to select the square and rectangle and round their corners off by pulling the live corners inward. Rounded corners are huge in retro design. Everything from appliances to kitchen counters to print design was delightfully rounded off in much of the mid-20th century. I think if you're going to translate modern design to something vintage or retro, one of the quickest ways to do so is with rounded corners. Next up, we'll modify a rectangle so it's rounded only on one side. Select two of the anchor points with the Direct Selection tool and pull their live corners inward so the edge rounds out completely. Copy and paste the shape. Rotate it if you wish. This shape will be used for the microphone and parts of the camera design in our Course project. Copy and paste the circle and push the bottom anchor point upward toward the Direct Selection tool. The style of shape is perfect for highlights and circular objects. Another basic shape is the bloated rounded rectangle or square. Not only were lots of shapes rounded, but they had an inflated look to them. Think of old TVs and radios. Select one of your rectangles and go to Effect, Warp, Inflate. Drag the bend to the right a bit. 11 to 15% should be efficient, though if you have a much smaller or larger object than mine, you might prefer a different setting. Play with your design as you see fit. The inflation effect should be noticeable, but not overdone. Expand your effect under Object, Expand Appearance. Our last shape style for this course is a long rounded rectangle. Draw a long rectangle and round off the top edge. Shapes like these are great for borders or additions onto larger objects. We'll be using it with our TV design. Basic retro shape design is fairly simple in that it's comprised of basic shapes with some simple shaping effects and rounded, smooth corners. Let's take a look at our color palette. I'll be using a rounded and bloated square to go over the colors I choose for this course. Feel free to join me in making the palette. Copy and paste several instances of the square. These will be our tangible set of color swatches. In the swatches panel, I've already got my colors ready to go. For starters, we'll be focusing on orange yellows. Harvest gold was common in appliances and designs of the 60s and 70s. Yellow ochre, too. I want my palette to reflect the sensibilities of the mid-20th century, but also something that flows well together. Buttercup yellow, a bright orange red, and a nice turquoise or teal round out the bulk of my palette. Dark brown and warm gray will be perfect for my darkest colors, while a light slate gray will be great for my lightest. Play with coral and mint too if you're feeling adventurous with your design. Since I mostly want to stick to a palette of primary colors, I won't be including them in my final designs. You can use a palette similar to this, or use these sorts of colors as a jumping off point for your work. Now that we've played with shapes and colors a bit, let's dive into building an object. In our next lesson, we'll create a retro television set with the shapes and colors from this lesson, plus a few extra.